Having a memory accident when playing for other people is something that has happened to all of us at some point. Your brain freezes, your fingers stop playing, and you feel everyone's disappointed eyes on you while you desperately try to restart. But what if I told you that there are well-researched reasons for those brain freeze situations and that we can train ourselves to avoid them? A famous psychologist called Daniel Goleman wrote a whole book about this problem in particular, and today I'm bringing you the most important takeaways so that you don't have to feel those tense moments ever again. The solution is simple, but first we need to understand how the brain works when you're doing a high concentration task. Your brain is a computer. Computers have a very big storage disk where all the information is located, but it's bad at doing quick calculations. And then there's the RAM. It does incredibly fast calculations, but it's much smaller in size and it can store much less information to be processed at the same time. In the case of your brain, the RAM is the part that is responsible for the only one thing at which you're paying full attention at any given time. It's very powerful and very reactive. It can process things very fast, but it can deal with only one small, limited, focused thing at a time. And the big storage drive is the part of your brain that is responsible for every automated task. When you repeat any action enough times to internalize it, you're moving the task into the storage drive. Any activity that we learn from repetition follows this pattern. First, we make the action one time with full focus, slowly, and paying attention to every movement. Then we repeat it a lot of times, making sure we don't make mistakes, and that creates what is called a neural pathway. That means that the action is transferred to the storage disk, and we can now do it automatically, without actively thinking of it. And it should feel automatic because your RAM, the narrow and one thing at a time part of your brain, doesn't have enough storage to process the enormous amount of notes, finger movements, phrasings, voicings, rhythms, and dynamics that are happening at the same time while you play. This part can control all of that, and in fact it can do it at the same time that it keeps your heart beating, your lungs breathing, and it keeps yourself from peeing out. So now you're on stage. You're playing a piece you've performed 100 times before, but this time your crush has come to listen to you for the first time, so you're nervous. And what happens when you're nervous? If you've ever performed on stage, or spoken in public, or taken an important exam, or talked to the girl or the guy you like, you'll know the answer. You start second-guessing yourself. Now, I want you to understand something. Second-guessing is just our RAM freaking out and asking our storage drive, "Are you sure you have everything under control? Are you sure? 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 Are you sure?" And there's a specific kind of second-guessing that always destroys your performance in a matter of seconds. So now you're on stage. This is you playing, quite nervous. What happens if you start thinking, "Shit, I don't know where I'm taking my crush to dinner later"? Nothing bad actually. That's not dangerous because your RAM is focusing on your non-existent dinner reservation while the powerful part of your brain is doing its job. And what happens if you think, "It's so cold here, my hands are getting cold and I'll start missing notes"? Also nothing wrong yet. That one is also not dangerous because your RAM is focusing on the temperature of your hands while the rest of your brain is still cooking. But pay attention now. What happens if your second guessing sounds like, "Shit, is the next left hand note a B or a B flat?" That is your RAM taking the wheel, and that's the moment where everything falls apart. Suddenly you start actively thinking about every note that is coming next, and you already know that your RAM doesn't have enough power to process anything else than one small thing at a time. So it gets overwhelmed in seconds, and when that happens, it feels like you forgot what is coming next. You never actually forgot anything, it's all in your storage drive. But unfortunately, it wasn't the storage drive, the one that was working at the time. And now the big question, can this be avoided? The answer is yes, but it requires some training. First of all, you should practice enough, you should move enough information to the storage drive through repetition that there's absolutely no need for the RAM to take over. If you have your RAM on call for moments of the piece you're not confident with, it's more likely that it takes over in moments where you don't actually need it, messing everything up. And second, you should understand why your RAM takes over when you don't need it. You must think of it as a hyperactive child. It always wants to be focusing on something stimulating. That's why we are all social media addicts nowadays. If you're doing something repetitive like washing the dishes, doing some boring office job, or even playing a piece for the millionth time, your RAM will be bored and it will fight for attention. So the next time you feel that second guessing happening in front of an audience or even in front of your teacher, just believe in yourself, trust your countless hours of practice through repetition, enjoy the music that your hands will create, and let your mind travel wherever it wants to go. But please, please, keep that problem child away from the notes that you're playing. Now, if you want to keep learning amazing stuff about music and piano performance, have a look at this video in which I show you how learning just a few big chords and practicing them the correct way can create a transformation in your sound. Don't forget to subscribe on your way out, and see you in the next video.